Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Doris Charles, the leader of the National Liberation Movement, NLM, here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we welcome you to this program, our weekly program, where we have it twice per week, yes, which is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we call it NLM and You. This evening is Tuesday the 23rd of September 2025. I should say today, not just this evening. Today is Tuesday the 23rd of September 2025, and we are excited and happy that you can welcome us into your homes. Share the live, and let us know that you are there. As usual, I am seeing a slow connection, and I am hopeful that we will be joined by you and that we will continue with our discussions on a very important topic this evening, which is dual citizenship. But before we get into the issue of dual citizenship, I would like to say thank you to those persons who would have attended our political meetings thus far. And we have had meetings in Vermont between the culvert or intersection that's leading to Francois Village. We also were in Retreat, which is outside the community center and the junction leading to Philippines. We were scheduled to be in Dubois, but we had to make some changes, but we will be coming back to you on that. We went to Rillen Hill and we stood next to McNeil's shop, and we were also in Penniston. We were in Chauncey, yes, close to the bus stop area around the Chauncey Junction, and we went to Penniston, which was at the bridge to Mr. O'Neill or Bad Boy's shop. And we are continuing with our meetings, and should have continued, I should say, with our meetings in Clare Valley this evening. But we recognize that the inclement weather, we have had some notification that there was inclement weather, and so we will reschedule for that meeting as well. So bear in mind that we will come back to Clare Valley and Dubois at another time. Our next series of meetings would be on the 4th of October, which would be in Camden Park, close to the park or Paddy Shop. The 5th of October would be at Top Kittles in the intersection close to Mazai Shop. And on the 6th of October, we will be in Lower Kittles on the hill overlooking Rucher Bay. So again, the 4th would be in Camden Park, close to the park or Paddy Shop. On the 5th of October, we'll be in Top Kittles in the intersection close to Mazai Shop. And on the 6th of October, we will be in Lower Kittles on the hill overlooking Writers Bay or Rucher Bay, as some would call it. We want to thank those who have joined us now, and we are going to get into the meat of our matter. Some time ago, but some years ago, we would have heard comments from the current opposition leader, which seems to suggest that he is doubly qualified in the position in which he is. Well, that is the assumption. But then one has to ask the question as to why it is that one of our learned legal professionals will get to the stage of saying that he is doubly qualified to be not just a representative, but rather to participate in the electoral process and to hold a position, a very key position as leader of the opposition here in St. Vincent. The National Liberation Movement, of which I am a part, says that Dr. Friday was ill-advised to say, he was ill-advised to say that he is doubly qualified as a Commonwealth citizen and of Vincentian to hold a position as a leader of the opposition, meaning that he is a member of Parliament. Good evening, good afternoon, Mr. Ford. Good afternoon, Mrs. Hodge. Good afternoon, Mr. Straker, and all the others who would come on from time to time. And yes, Mrs. Hodge is saying good day to all our fellow Vincentians and welcome to the NLM Talkback. So the issue is so great. The issue is of national and international importance because there are a number of persons that are wondering whether or not we even understand that aspect of our Constitution. And of course, you know, I love to speak about the Constitution. It's one of the electives that many of us, students like myself, who pass through law schools here and there, many students would choose to do constitutional law. And that's one of the things that, I recognize was quite interesting. So since 2018, that whole issue of double qualification that was well articulated by the Honorable Minister, Dr. Godwin Friday. And I am saying to him that he has been ill-advised to say that he's doubly qualified. I would go further to say this, that it is based on case law, settled law, that Dr. Friday sits in Parliament and he has been allowed so to do, and wrongfully he has been allowed so to do. So the system has been skewed in such a way as to allow someone to break the law in that sense, and that is wrong. The National Liberation Movement is taking issue with that. Remember, when we are critical of a matter, it is on principle. None of us hold any grudge. None of us hold, well, I would want to think that I'm speaking on behalf of us, that we do not hold any grudge against a particular officer, a particular politician, but rather we will hold our politicians to account for whether they squander money, whether they sit in Parliament and they're not supposed to sit there. Whatever it is that they have done or are doing, we know for sure that they must comply with the law. And we are saying that we will challenge Dr. Godwin Friday as the leader of the New Democratic Party. We are saying we are challenging him on this issue, not to challenge him to fight or anything like that. No. This is a legal challenge. We will ask questions. We will seek guidance from the people's lawyer, which is the Attorney General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We will continue to educate the public on these matters and others. So the case to which I made reference was one that was well spoken of, well written about, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court case of appeal, the Court of Appeal. So I'm going to go that over again. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court of Appeal. This was in 2020, and the case was quite instructive. It was the Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis and Dr. Denzel Douglas. Madam Justice, Chief Justice Pereira gave the judgment. all to read. You can read that. It's 28 pages long. It's available online. Concurring with that judgment was Justice of Appeal Gertrude Thom, as she then was, as well as Justice of Appeal Acting Paul Webster. Now, true, I had returned from the UK and was still around, and I retired in 2018. I listened to the arguments, and there are other things that were happening, and I'm saying, like, okay, why didn't somebody take this in hand and question a number of things? And when I recognized that our current Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, did raise the issue, that's what he did, he raised the issue, I'm saying that we should have gone further than just raising the issue about this double qualification that Dr. Lauren Friday would have made, the statement that he made. When I recognized that there were several other arguments going back and forth, in my personal capacity, I became painfully aware of the issue and the impact that it would have on our understanding of the Constitution, specific to the matter of representation in a house. And so I wrote about it, and the article is online, and it talks about not all Commonwealth citizens are created equal. So, yes, Mrs. Hodge, you say he is not just ill-advised. I believe he may even be presumptuous in his act. Okay, so let us analyze this. Many people did show their disapproval, but I am asking the question of whether it's Dr. Friday or anyone else who is seated there. This double qualification, I asked on behalf of us, the National Liberation Movement, and concerned citizens, other concerned citizens in St. Vincent and Grenadines, what is he doubly qualified to do? So he claimed that he is a Commonwealth citizen and the Vincentian. And so, brothers and sisters, we ask, therefore, what is his constitutional strength to lead our country? He is, as far as we know, unless the situation has changed, as far as we know, based on his words in the public domain, up to May, June, July of this year, as far as I am aware. And let us say that the situation has changed. Well, all this information that we will be reading to you is just for our knowledge. Canada, let us suppose Canada, because he is known to be a Canadian citizen, but let us suppose Canada is warring against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What is he going to do with having two passports, one from Canada and one from St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Let us suppose there is the issue that he is Minister of Defense and a war breaks out. The question is, which side will he be standing on? MC Kenneth Kittels, Pat Doyle, and Adrian Wiley and Leanna Mitson, we thank you for logging on and for looking with us and for dialoguing. So please, yes, you can send in your information. You can text us and let us have this dialogue. The cumulative effect in that case, the case in 2020 specific to Dr. Denzel Douglas, who was the then leader of the opposition and was sitting in the House. This is part of the judgment. It says the cumulative effect by his application for the receipt and use of a Dominican diplomatic passport placed him in clear breach of Section 28(1)(a) of the Constitution as a matter of law. The consequence in terms of Section 33(3)(c), that consequence was that Dr. Douglas is required at the time when this was written to vacate his seat in the National Assembly. Brothers and sisters, members of the viewing public, this is critical because it speaks directly to the issue of dual citizenship. In the case of Dr. Denzel Douglas, and having read that case more than once, the summary of the case, it says that it mattered not that that in this case it was a diplomatic passport. You see, this whole issue of allegiance, obedience, acknowledgement, and so on, and the whole issue of a foreign state, I am going to help us to understand, those who do not yet grasp it, about some of the meanings of these words. When it says, so I believe one of the first things I should do is actually to read the provision in both the Act and for us the Representation of the People's Act. Well, both the Constitution and the Representation of the People's Act. The Constitution, Section 26(1) of St. Vincent and Grenadines says this: there is a disqualification, the topic was disqualification for representatives and senators. Hereinafter, in this section, referred to as a member, if he is it by virtue of his own act, under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. He is what? Disqualified. In this case, we are speaking of Dr. Friday, who went public and said that he was doubly qualified. Nowhere in the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has it stated that you who, or me, who is both a Commonwealth citizen and a Vincentian, is doubly qualified to hold a position as representative and or a senator. So, the meaning of the word disqualified says you're declared ineligible for an office, activity, or competition because of an offense or infringement. In other words, again, disqualification for representatives and senators, that the person is declared ineligible, that the person cannot hold office or can't participate in an activity or a competition because of an offense. And definitely, here is an offense. You're disqualified based on the fact that by virtue of your own act, meaning that you would have done something that is, you sign, you pledge allegiance elsewhere, you pledge an oath, you made an oath or an allegiance to another nation, state, while you are holding office, or supposed to be holding office in another state, so to speak. You can't have two passports in your pockets and expect that those passports, one represent one nation, one represent another nation, that you can serve. It's like the Bible has said, what? Can you serve two masters at the same time? It's not possible. Now, before I get any further, yes, Mrs. Hodges saying, I am sure Mr. Friday is aware of the laws of St. Vincent and Grenadines. I believe so. He and all of his party should be aware of his situation and should not have him as head of their party as he is in breach of the law. Well said. So I go now to the representation of the People's Act. There is a section, yes, Mrs. Hodges, say, a house divided cannot stand. Indeed, the qualification of members. And I say this without any sort of prejudice or, want to fight down anybody and so on. I am explaining this to our nation, the nationals of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the world over who are looking at us as an example of a country that has what is known as the West, or has acquired or accepted the Westminster style of democracy with this constitution that we have. It says qualification of members, section 35(1). This is reflective of the constitutional provision of section 26(1). So, qualification of members in the RPA, which is the Representation of the People's Act. It says no person shall be qualified. Meaning, let me read it first and then I come back with the meaning. No person shall be qualified to be elected or appointed as a representative or senator hereinafter in this section referred to as a member of the House of Assembly if he is, same words, by virtue of his own act, under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. So when we say that no person shall be qualified, officially it can be recognized as being trained to perform the particular job. That is what no person shall be qualified means. So we are saying that we have the head of a party, which is the current head or leader of the opposition, who is sitting in Parliament, and we, the constituents of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, somehow turned a blind eye to where he is at. And every 3-4 days when something happens, you'll hear one of us get up and we say, oh, he's not supposed to be there and so on. I'm saying that this evening's program, this afternoon's program, should help us to clarify certain things and to make us understand that we cannot continue to allow a wrong to be, because we want change. All of us want change. You come every 5 years, you want change. You didn't see something you right in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, in this case, nearly 25 years, and you want change. But change, yes, but the person that is supposed to be the leader of this country of ours must also understand the Constitution and understand it as it affects his or her position. So let's talk a little bit about a few words that we have been hearing. By virtue of your own act. If you're doing something by virtue of your own act, nobody force you. Nobody hold a gun to your head, a piece of bamboo or a stick, and try to push you into doing something, write your name without you even wanting to write your name. But it is by virtue of your own act, and you have to be 16 years and over in this sense, because it is specific to the Citizenship Act within the various countries within the Commonwealth. Canada is part of the Commonwealth. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is also part of the Commonwealth. I have had the opportunity to sit around a huge table in a huge building in London. And we went there for several meetings. And that place is called Marlborough House. So you have Canada seated on one side, St. Vincent seated on the other side, and several other states within the Commonwealth. Each of us were what? Foreign to each other, because we have laws specific to the nation states. And according to international law, we are all held out as being foreign to each other and therefore foreign states. That is why I cannot go to Canada and sit in the Canadian Parliament or even live in a province and declare that I am doubly qualified as a Commonwealth citizen to be part of their electoral process. It does not happen that way. That is if I'm a Canadian citizen and a Commonwealth citizen. It doesn't happen that way. Okay, Mrs. Hunt, you say, it is saying if I or any of us have chosen to take a passport, we pledge allegiance to another country. Let's put it this way. Allegiance is saying you give loyalty. You write it down, so by signing on a piece of paper, you get a pen. Okay, how nice the pen is. You get a pen, you say, you sign it, and you have a commitment to a superior, you're pledging allegiance, or to a group, or to a cause. There is a song, I pledge allegiance to the Lamb of God. You pledge allegiance to remain a Christian, and so on. So you pledge allegiance that way. You're saying, you're writing, you're making an oath basically to say, yes, I will remain loyal, I remain committed to a superior or to a group, or to a country or to a cause. Yes? The other word is obedience. When you talk about obedience, it's like your mommy send you down the road and tell you that you must buy fish. You pledge that, yes, mom, you're going to buy fish, and I'm going to come back on such and such a time. So you are obeying what your mommy has asked you to do. You come back at the particular time and you bring back the fish. So obedience is the act of behaving respectfully and in accordance with rules, in accordance with laws or commands, especially those from an authority figure. In this case, our law is saying that we are expected to be obedient. Then there is another, yes, like on a contractual basis, yes. Thank you, Mrs. Hodge. Like is a social influence, this whole thing about obedience, where a person yields to explicit instructions. In other words, there is no doubt that you have understood the instructions or the orders from somebody who is considered a legitimate authority figure, and it is going to result in a change of your behavior. So that is obedience. You behave respectfully in accordance with all the laws and the rules and so on that came to us from an authority figure. And another way in which we look at obedience is that of compliance with your order. In other words, to say, you have to comply with the law, you're trying not to break that law. So you comply with the order, the request or the law, and you submit to an authority. Brothers and sisters, there's another word that we will look at, and that is acknowledgement. Meaning that you accept whatever to say as truth or existence of something. So you acknowledge whatever it is, you accepting whatever it is as the absolute truth or the existence of something. There is an expression of gratitude or appreciation for something. So you acknowledge it. So my friend Silva, you would give me a piece of sugar cake, and I say, thank you. I acknowledge that the sugar cake was really good, and I take that sugar cake and I eat it. So that is expressing my gratitude or appreciation for the piece of sugar cake. Brothers and sisters, on page 15 of the case that I made reference to, that is Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis and Dr. Denzel Douglas. It is 28 pages long. I ask us to read it. Read it in your spare time. If you want me to help to read it with you or someone else, please. And I'm not trying to be belittling anyone or anything like that. I'm just saying that information that lies therein, that information will help us to understand the issue that we are speaking about today. And that is the National Liberation Movement and You. Talk back. We are here discussing this whole aspect of dual citizenship and why Dr. Godwin Friday, Dr. Lorraine Godwin Friday cannot be considered a legitimate leader of the opposition because he is sitting in Parliament and he is considered by the law of St. Vincent and the Grenadines as sitting there as a disqualified member. And we, yes, we, the peoples of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, continue to ignore the provisions of the Constitution if we turn a blind eye to the fact that he is sitting where he is sitting, even though he was elected. Yes? And the thing about it is that the constituents of the Northern Grenadines should have been guided differently. And it is definitely an error on all of our parts, and we need to correct this before we enter into the next general election. I would say that Dr. Godwin Friday needs to either give up one of his passports, and in this case, he'll have to give up his citizenship. If he still has it, he'll have to give up his citizenship in order for us to allow him to run again as a bona fide Vincentian. Failure to do that, he will not be allowed. According to the Constitution, he should not be allowed to run again on the ticket for his seat in the Northern Grenadines. And I've written about this since 2020. It's there. Not all Commonwealth citizens are created equal. I've written about it. So long before I actually got into, an active participation in politics and so on, I have written about it, and I'm seeing that we continue to do this. Sometimes we give people a little chance and so on, and sometimes it comes back to kind of help us to understand that the first issue was you allow somebody, you give them an inch, they take a L, so to speak. We are saying that Dr. Godwin Friday cannot sit in Parliament and ignore what has been written in our Constitution. Section 26(1), disqualifications for representative and senators. And that provision has been reflected in the RPA, Representation of the People's Act, Part 5, qualification of members, 35(1)A, Section 35(1)A, basically the same wording that says that no person shall be qualified to be elected or appointed as a representative or a senator, hereinafter in this section referred to as a member of the House of Assembly, if he is, by virtue of his own act, under any acknowledgement, remember we talked about acknowledgement, yeah, acceptance of the truth or existence of something, yes? Acknowledgement of allegiance. Allegiance, we say, is loyalty or commitment to a superior or to a group or a cause. And it went on to say, also under any acknowledgement of allegiance or obedience, we talk about the act of behaving respectfully in accordance with the rules, laws, or commands, especially those from an authority figure. Obedience or adherence. Yes, remember we spoke of that as well. So you adhere to, or you hold on to another idea, adherence, yes, to a foreign power or state. We will get on to the issue of a foreign power. Yes, Mrs. Sargent, so the point is, if the opposition should by any means win the next election, their leader would be disqualified. I'm glad that you raised that issue. The leader of the opposition cannot, according to the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, he cannot be allowed 2 passports. Those 2 passports show itself up here when it says this: if by virtue of your own act you are under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state, you are not qualified so to do, because the provisions in the Constitution states clearly there would be a disqualification for you or me or Dr. Godwin Friday or any other person as representatives and senators. That's what it is saying. We cannot allow additional breaches of the Constitution to take place. We can't. Otherwise, we become a laughing stock of the Westminster style of democracy. We can't. We just can't. We cannot afford to. What is Dr. Friday? In his own words, he said, a double qualification. I want him, I'm challenging him to explain to this nation again, in light of the Constitution, show us in the Constitution, show us where it says, from the Representation of the People's Act, that you are doubly qualified to serve this nation in the capacity as our incoming Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition. Those are key positions that any nation state would look up to the individuals for them to help us understand where we are going as a nation. So and I'm not trying to, how do you put it, trying to pit one leader against the other. I'm just stating what we have seen as the facts. And those who are our legal professionals who continue to sort of hide behind the fact to say, oh, you were once a diplomat in the current administration, so therefore you are somehow upholding the views of this current administration. I'm saying, no, I have stood up against so many ills that I have seen, and I keep questioning, what is it that we are doing with us? And if we have key people who are supposed to be elected members of parliament, they must be elected in accordance with the Constitution and the Representation of the People's Act. That's all I'm saying. So, once you live here or in the diaspora or you're a Commonwealth citizen, of course you could hold 20 passports. We specific to the Commonwealth Citizen Party. Yeah, you could hold more than one. For me, I could hold one from Trinidad and Tobago, and I could hold my Vincentian passport. By virtue of my father, I can hold a Trinidad passport. So this is your constitutional right, and therefore, this would be my constitutional right. Anyone with two passports we can participate in the political process in this home country of ours called St. Vincent and Grenadines. Nobody is saying that Dr. Friday cannot vote. Nobody is saying that Doris Charles cannot vote. But you see, when it comes to the Representation of the People's Act, and when it comes to the disqualification of representatives and senators, you tell me, the disqualification for representatives and senators is found in Section 26(1) of our Constitution and Part 5. Qualification of members, again it is reflected there under the RP, the Representation of the People's Act, Section 35(1). It's not me who says so, it's the law. And if you break the law and want to sit to try to guide us into anything else, you are the front man or front woman and you don't understand the Constitution, please, where you going? Because you don't understand your own particular role. That's all we say, you know. Give it a thing clean and nice and dandy. So, the Constitution is the highest law, the supreme law of our land, and it's supposed to be obeyed. So when we talk about disqualification of representatives and senators, these are not my words. If by virtue of your own act, you take a pen and you sign to collect a passport representative of your citizen, the status of your citizenship status, so to speak, by virtue of your own act, 16 years and over, nobody put any gun to your head, you go ahead and you write and you accept a passport, you are basically accepting this, that you are under an acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign state or foreign power. Any voter can challenge the eligibility of any representative to sit in the House of Parliament. I'm calling on you, the citizen, to challenge this as well. You see, the House must not be a place where those who do not understand their role, who do not understand their constitutional rights specific to that particular role, should sit with two passports in their pockets. That's the issue that we're talking about. So persons can have dual citizenship according to our laws. You're born abroad, you were born to Vincentian parents, and you obtain citizenship of the country of your birth. You have ministers of government who did that. So you have dual citizenship, but in one case we noted that a particular minister was born in the United States of America, and to satisfy the provisions of the Act, he was born there of Vincentian parentage. At least one of his parents was a Vincentian. One of his parents was a Vincentian. He did what? He did the honorable thing, and he made sure that he gave up one of those passports. Yes, I am hearing, you say maybe he's able to make any Vincentians who want to become a Canadian citizen without going through the Canadian citizenship immigration system. That is the only way he can be an extra qualified. There's no such thing under our Constitution. There is no such thing under our Constitution as doubly qualified. I am asking, what is he doubly qualified to do? I raise the issue again. Canada is fighting a war against St. Vincent and Grenadines. You have two passports. You are the leader of the country called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You are the head of government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Head of state, of course, is our Governor General. Right? Good. Fellas say, okay then, one body want to fight, they want to come up from the Grenadines to throw some sort of gas or whatever it is. Fictitiously, of course, talking. Which side would he stand on? He has pledged what? Pledged. He's under an acknowledgement of allegiance to a foreign state. He is under an acknowledgement of obedience to a foreign state. He is adhering to and not under any acknowledgement or of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. No, some persons start talking. I hear that they have all kind of discussions all over the world to say that how some of us don't understand what it means when it say a foreign state. Listen, if I was wrong, then I was wrong. But I know I'm not wrong when it comes to this particular issue. I may be wrong. Nobody is perfect. I may be wrong on other issues. But you see, when I research something, and I make sure I double check with my counterparts, either from Jamaica or Canada or the United States or some states in Africa, on any particular matter, the United Kingdom, and so on, also some of our CARICOM states. I make sure, I make sure that when I present something to you, I just double check. So can somebody else be wrong and give me wrong information? Of course. But by God's grace, I try to give the very best in terms of explanations here, because this is basically, a permanent record. I write about stuff as well. Let me tell you, when it comes to a de jure allegiance to a foreign state, let me take off the part about de jure, and let me just talk about allegiance to a foreign state. All right, take out allegiance, and let me talk about what is a foreign state. Let me give a practical example, and I am drawing as well from the case, and that case again that you will read, Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis and Dr. Denzel Douglas. The judgment was given by Chief Justice Pereira. Concurring with that judgment is Justice of Appeal Gertel Thorne, as they then were, and Justice of Appeal Acting Paul Webster. They talk about what is a foreign state. When I sat at the Commonwealth Secretariat as a representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I just didn't go there because, well, we had anything else for Doris to do, so that's the situation. She gone to say, and I couldn't just go there. I was a representative of a foreign state, foreign to all other states there, even if we were all part of the Commonwealth group of nations. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines is foreign to Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a foreign state to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Canada is a foreign state to St. Vincent and the Trinidad and Tobago. And Trinidad and Tobago and St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a foreign state to Canada. Yet, they share something in common, and that is they sit within this umbrella body called the Commonwealth Group of Nations. So we are foreign to each other. I hear how people talk about, because you're in the Commonwealth, done or nothing. No! It does not operate that way according to the law. It is a matter of law and it is a matter of fact. And you see, when them two combine together, I remember you had a Professor Aubrey Bishop, one of the best legal minds that I've ever come across in my entire legal career, Professor Bishop. Aubrey Bishop. May his soul rest in peace. He was head or dean of our law school in University of Guyana. I say that to say, having been taught then, and having continued to study the law, because even now I'm still studying, I will, on my deathbed, I believe I will still be studying. When my eye close so, then I will stop studying. Some people close off their mind to say, well, okay, then I study anything more, then I read this. Let me tell you something about reading. It expands our minds. And the thing about it is that you will come across new learning every day. If it's one thing I am aware of, is that I don't know everything, and that I must continue to read and to study so that I am able to understand the happenings around me and my relevance to the rest of my community. So I read the Bible, could read the Bible some more. And I read all kind of literature I could think about. Every day, I will try, by God's grace, to read something new. Magazines online, even if it's a paragraph. I look at several news agencies and I compare notes. So I am saying to us this thing about foreign state. The states are foreign to each other. Let's take CARICOM. Let me leave the Commonwealth Group of Nations. Let me leave that. And let me deal with CARICOM. As well as the United Nations. You have over 100 plus nations in the United Nations. I jump the gun there. And each state is foreign to each other. In CARICOM, each state is foreign to each other, and that is what the law lords have directed on. That is what they have said to us in the judgment of the case between the Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis and Dr. Denzel Douglas. It's quite instructive. It should be instructive to us here in the Caribbean, with specific reference to the issue of the leader of the opposition who aspired to be our Prime Minister and his current position. And I am saying to Dr. Friday that you ought to review your position with one aim, and the aim is to give up one of your passports, preferably the Canadian passport, because you sit in Parliament in breach of the Constitution and the representation of the People's Act. That's all I'm saying. And let me tell you, you have several provisions in the Constitution that says all kinds of things. One of them says this: the penalty for acting as a member without having been elected or returned is pointed out in section 64(1), stating any person who has not been elected or returned in accordance with the provision of this act comes into the House of Assembly claiming to be a member of the House or having entered, acts as a member of that House, is guilty of an offense and is liable to a fine of $750. And I'm saying, why has the House of Assembly broken its own rules? Because, of course, the House of Assembly stands in direct, line, or I should say, in accepting the Constitution, the constitutional provisions. Yes, okay, thank you very much for helping me to understand the time. So was the constitutional provisions ignored because it was okay to do so at the time? Why would we do that? Why would St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to do that? Are there members currently in this House besides the member of the Northern Grenadines and leader of the opposition, aspiring Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Are there other members who are currently in the House who sit there, haven't been elected, but their constituency members were ill-advised? Who is it that will challenge the eligibility of representatives to sit in this House? Well, I could tell you one thing, the National Liberation Movement will, because we are doing that right now. We are challenging this, and we are asking for you, the members of the public, to support what we are saying and to try to understand this. You know, there are some persons who will get on radio and on television and they speak of matters that they too were ill-advised on. And they're good citizens, good. But because they don't quite get it, I am saying, like me and others, research it and let's come to a conclusion. And why have we continued to ignore the Constitution in this way? This cannot continue. Our people must rise up and demand an explanation from the court. The other thing, it may not even get to the court. Why not write the Attorney General, who is the people's lawyer? Write him so that he is able to provide us an explanation as to what is going on. And so Section 36(2) of the Constitution, determination of questions of membership of the House, states that an application to the High Court for the determination of any question under subsection 1A of this section may be made by any person entitled to vote in the election to which the application relates, or by any person who was a candidate at that election, or by the Attorney General himself. That is why the case, look at it again, the case with Attorney General of St. Christopher and Nevis and Dr. Denzel Douglas. You understand me? Or against Dr. Denzel Douglas. And that is how we arrived in 2020 at that judgment. It had to go to Court of Appeal because all kind of arguments that the learned gentlemen and men, the learned judges, the learned lawyers, legal professionals would have put forward on behalf of Dr. Douglas, but he had to resign. Why? Because he was in breach of the Constitution. And that's what we are saying. Disqualification for representatives and senators was not put in the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for mere show or mere, fashion. It's there, Section 26(1) of the Constitution. And as I said before, Part 5, Qualification of Members, Representation of the Peoples Act 1982, Section 35(1) says the same thing. One says no person shall be qualified, that is officially recognized as being trained to perform this particular job as representative or as a senator on behalf of us, the people. The other says disqualification for representatives and the senators. They say the same thing. If a person, man or woman, is by virtue of his own act to take a pen at the age of 16 and over, and he's under any acknowledgement of allegiance, and we explained that earlier, obedience, or he adhere to a foreign power or state, and we are trying to say to us with this whole aspect of being a foreign power or state, what it talks about, then therefore, Dr. Godwin Friday, who is the aspiring Prime Minister, has to do one thing and one thing only in order to rectify the situation. Give up one of your passports. One of your passports is Canadian as far as you have told us, unless you change that status yesterday and you didn't tell us. If you still hold to 2 passports, you are ineligible to go forward in this coming election. We want to quarrel about it? I don't think we should. Let us just ask for guidance from our legal professionals here, and more specifically, the Attorney General, who is a people's lawyer, let the Attorney General sign on that. Let him, and he has done very good in terms of, he or his office, or it causes officers to do a great research as it relates to clarification of the law on all matters. Yes, Mrs. Hodge, you say it appears that those in the House of Parliament is doing their things outside of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, that's quite explosive. When you say their things, it's quite explosive. When you say outside of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that's quite explosive as well. And it may not be this forum where we sit and actually dissect your statement, but it is quite useful for you to have written that and quite instructive. And then you also said not all, just some. So it appears that some in the House of Parliament is doing their things outside of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I may want to ask you to explain that, but we are actually out of time. Brothers and sisters, all I am saying on behalf of the National Liberation Movement is this. If Dr. Friday claimed, and he did, in 2018, his words are that he is doubly qualified to serve where he is at. And we allowed him so to do. We encouraged a breach of the Constitution, and it should be rectified. We, the electorate of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, should correct this. We must ask Dr. Friday if he is serious about further representation, that he must, of course, relinquish, put aside one of his passports. He can't have two and continue to run. You will challenge that. Let us please, if we don't want to go to court, but we could, because we need clarification on this. Many of our persons, many of our citizens don't quite get it. I have attempted some explanation, and I trust that this is going to help us. We don't have to have quarrels, but we must rectify that which we allowed in the past to be wrong. If something is wrong, if a sum start wrong, it is not going to finish right. Okay? All right then. So yes, so we have come to the end of another program of the National Liberation Movement and You Talk Back. Thank you so much. We advise that you can get in touch with us 1-784-491-3923, or you can write to us at NATIONALIBERATION Movement, MOVEMENT, the National Liberation Movement at gmail.com. You notice we don't have two L's in the middle there. We say national, join in one L, that one L, to liberation movement at gmail.com. My name is Doris Charles, the leader of the National Liberation Movement and a candidate proposed for this upcoming general election, whenever it's called. I'll be running for the seat contesting the seat in South Leeward, and we have another candidate, which is Mr. Carlson Ford, for the constituency of South Windward. We look forward to hearing from you, and let us continue to keep all of us in prayer as we move forward into an unknown future. May God bless us all and have a very pleasant good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're watching from in the globe. Goodbye. Bye for now.